Hey everybody, welcome to the TIMGA podcast. Today I'm joined with Dr. Jasmine Arora. She is our USMLE instructor here at TIMGA and has a lot of experience working before at Kaplan. She's an IMG herself and has worked with many students to help them be successful in their USMLE journey. And today we're here just to learn a little bit on what to look for in a USMLE course and some tips and tricks to help you succeed in the exam. So, Dr. Aurora, welcome to the show. Really excited to
Thank you
have you today.
so much, Dr. Khalifa. I appreciate you allowing me an opportunity to be speaking to our IMGs.
Yeah, so Dr. Aurora, just tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get into teaching for USMLE courses? Like, what was like? When did you start? Why did you do it? What was?
Yeah,
Did you have a passion for teaching? What was it like?
absolutely. Well, I did go to the High School of Teaching in Queens, New York. I was born and raised in New York, and I decided to do medical school, which brought me to India. And from there, I was around a lot of international medical students. And when I returned to New York, I decided that I really cared about the international medical student experience. And so it happened to be that I was close to Kaplan Medical Center in New York, which helped me study myself for like the comprehensive test we take in a Caribbean medical school. And so from there, I realized that, I could really relate to IMGs at a deeper level. So I always got involved as I was studying myself. I got involved with other tutoring sessions at Kaplan, and that led me to become a Kaplan medical advisor. And that's how all started.
Yeah, that's just a great story. So, and amazing. So, how did you, for example, when you got into Kaplan, was it straight like, did they let you, take over, or was it like, did you serve in many different roles?
I did have different roles. I started with, so after Kaplan medical students would finish their live lectures with professors from that subject, I would teach a class that used to be facilitator class, and we would review questions and discuss the wrong answer choices. And so a class of 100 students would be divided into like 20s, 30s, and so it just gave the students an opportunity to review the lecture in an active session versus like passively doing questions. And so that's how I started, along with the medical advising for students, just simply helping them figure out what resources they should use based on their timeline. And then from there, I started teaching a class called Critical Thinking Session, which was once a week, sometimes twice a week. And that had a lot more students, up to like 50, 60, sometimes 100, but not all students would be present. So, and in that class, we had a different set of questions that we would review. And those topics were like weekly, and they would be different from like the post lecture sessions. So as I started teaching, I think I built confidence. And of course, the more you read the material, the more you remember it, right? And so I constantly was reading USMLE material, which I think helped me myself as along with helping other students. So from there, I think that I always really enjoyed teaching.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, what is your style of? Because you see so many, teaching styles, out there. Like some people are like, hey, for USMLE specifically, they're like, hey, just do as much questions as you can, and some people are like, hey, make sure you get the knowledge theory first and then do the questions. And some people say, hey, learn from the questions itself. Like, why are you reading all these books?
Mhm.
What is your philosophy? What do you tell students?
So honestly, I usually start. I completely understand what you're asking, because I think as a student, as an IMG student particularly, this is always like a dilemma because, first of all, now due to the internet, there's just all this advice. So I usually start by telling students that you have to be honest with yourself. If you've had a longer gap since you've been doing basic sciences, or you truly don't understand the material. So, for example, like I was very weak in physiology, and physiology is very conceptual. So, you do need to really understand the concepts and like have a strong baseline and then build on it versus something like microbiology where you kind of have to like memorize bugs, you know? You either kind of know it or you don't. So I think the most important thing is to be honest with yourself and then decide how you're going to break down topics that are more conceptual and build on that, and then how you're going to study things that require more spaced repetition and memorization, you know?
Yeah, and when it comes to like learning concepts, I tell people nowadays that you guys are so lucky to have AI, because like when I was researching before as a as a student and later in the USMLE, it was like all kind of like going through research papers and going in the Wikipedia, looking in for like looking in books, just like kind of like multiple sources. But now, with AI, you have everything at your fingertips and you can just learn super, super fast. Even like Up to Date has, coded AI these days where you can just like learn so much concepts. How like in your view, how has AI, changed the learning process, in medicine and in USMLE?
So I'm definitely with you. I think for my own personal experience, I don't think I had so many options for QBank or even YouTube, I would say. So there's so many great YouTube channels, and now that we have AI, like I think it could be so overwhelming to know that you have all these resources and everyone like likes another resource over others, so you feel like you have to do all of them. So I do think that I would like I'm personally don't know too much about AI and medicine for studying, but I do know that there's certain Q banks that tend to be more effective than others. But I have my own views on the Q banks as well.
Yeah, that's great. So let's get to it. Let's say, okay, I'm an IMG. Um, and I want to start the USMLE. I just landed in the US, or maybe I just graduated from medical school. Because IMGs are different. Some people, they just graduate from medical school. They're here. They're doing the tests. Some
Mhm.
people, they're in second year of medical school. Some
Mhm.
people they're have been years out of medical school.
Right.
And they just want to do the USMA right now. Do IMGs need to attend a course, or can they self study? Like, the first question, if they ask you, what would you advise them on?
So I do think that you could self-study. But I do also think that if you've been out of basic science for a long time, I do advise students to, if it's a most courses are online now, and so I do think that you should enroll in something that works with your schedule because if you are an older grad, you will likely have more responsibilities, and doing videos and having a study plan would truly help you like um, work on your own schedule time versus like an in-person course definitely is a bigger commitment and time and money, right? So I don't think a course is a bad idea, online or like online live or just online or even in person, which probably is more ideal.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Mhm.
let's say basically, okay, let's say I've made the decision, hey, I want to do a course and I really want to pick a course. And as you know, like the internet, there's so many courses out there everywhere. Even if you type in Google USMLE course, you'll get so many. Um, how can students kind of, what are some of the things that they should take into account when picking the right choice for them,
Mhm.
with regards to a course?
So that's a really good question. Okay, honestly, I don't know how many uh, live uh, live in-person courses we have still in for USMLE besides Kaplan, which is popular, and I believe there's one. Actually, I'm not sure of any other on the East Coast. So I think with in-person courses, that's just becoming more rare. Even at Kaplan, I would say a lot of students opt for live online or just online classes because it just works better with the time difference, you know? Okay, sorry, I really don't know too much about online courses. Are you talking about like Falcon or?
Yeah, I mean, just like there's just so many courses out there. There's
Mhm.
there's the USMLE guy. There's like so many I mean private online courses.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, like
Yeah,
I
like
don't think there's any of those like bigger like Falcon or there's like
yeah,
a really prep in down south in Florida or
yeah. There's like
something.
USMLE Sarthi. There's just so many
Oh,
basically
right.
online courses out there,
Mhm.
right? So I know maybe like the um in-person courses are not a lot, but let's say online there's like somebody just Google's USMLE course and they see
Right.
like options. What are some of the questions maybe they should ask each other?
So I do think that with like private online courses, it's probably best to ask exactly what you're looking for, meaning like I think that you don't want someone to like passively just be reading to you and not giving an opportunity to ask questions or provide any clarification you may have. And the more private a course is, like if it's smaller group, it makes more sense to have that um attention one-on-one, right? And so to ask if it's just going to be passively reading and what exactly you're reading. I personally think that, as we know, like first aid is supposed to be really great, but some students, I would say like 2 out of 10 students might not find first aid that great and they might want something more in depth, right? And so what they're reading in a course is very important. And for everything you're reading, I do think that reading is very passive. So to be tested on that material, like is the course providing questions, and if so, is it like daily questions? Is it like end of the topic? And is there an opportunity to have like that one-on-one chance to actually review the questions or ask for clarifications? I think that's really important, especially for topics like physiology.
Yeah. That's a good point. You just just kind of like know what you're getting out of the course, right?
Right. And of
And
course, like how much, like could you make a payment plan? And it adds up, right?
yeah, definitely. That's great advice. And so, what is the typical, basically, out of the courses that you've seen? Do students need a year? Do they need 6 months? Like, what time frame do you think is optimal?
So I do think that if you've been out of school for more, if you've been out of school as in basic sciences for more than a year or two, I would say 2 years. I would say you do need about 10 to 12 months, but it really depends on how well you're scoring. So I think the best way to gauge that is to take like a practice in BME and see where you stand. And I think it for average students, if they would fall way below 50% on an MBME, and what that really tells us that is that you do only know 50% of the material in general, right? And of course, it's like a hit or miss. Like, are you getting the questions wrong because you're guessing, or are you getting it wrong, but the second choice you had was the right answer? So knowing like you have to be honest when you're reviewing and seeing that score. Like, was it something you just don't know, therefore you just need to study more, or is it because you're getting two things confused?
Yeah, I think it's because it's a really good point because like sometimes students don't evaluate that, right? Like they just do the MBME because as like a checkbox, like a check mark. You just get it out the way. But like really looking at the score and kind of evaluating question by question. Why do you think a lot of people don't do that?
I do think it's like a fear thing. I think that IMGs have it's difficult to think about all the things you have to do to get into residency or get your foot in the door in US, and I think sometimes students are really discouraged although they really want it, right? So um not thinking about it, just checking it off and kind of just ignoring it is probably the easy way to deal with it, but I think the hardest part is to find the discipline and the courage and the effort and being honest with your okay, remove that please. But I think it's really important to be honest with yourself about why you're getting the things you're getting wrong. Like, and that's not just for MBME, that's even when you're studying. Like, if you're getting questions wrong, and you're getting a 70, but you guessed it right, that's when that situation happens where students won't pass the USMLE even though they were doing well earlier, but it was just guesswork and just by chance they were getting a good score, but they didn't really know the material. So, and I've seen that happen very often, like students that I don't expect to fail. They would fail, and it's like you see them study so hard, and you wonder like what happened here, and it could just be a bad test day, right? So I think that's another story when it comes to, having to take a test again, right?
Yeah, yeah. And for the MBME, do you recommend because as you said, like you might take one MD MBME and you might do really good because you just maybe you got lucky.
Lucky.
So like is it like do you have to increase those odds a little bit? Maybe like do a couple MBMEs before you sit down for the test?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I do understand that, students sometimes take the UWorld assessment, or I think AMBOSS has assessments. So there's so many different assessments that you could take before the exam. So it's best to spread it out. So I would say regardless of your, phase of studying, when it comes to the last like 6 months, like you should be doing an MBME like every month or so, but the last 2 3 months I would say like every like 2 weeks is ideal to see how you're doing. And so it's that consistent score that really gives it truly makes you feel that okay, I am building knowledge, I think I'm getting closest to my goal, and I'm just gonna take it. And at that point you do have like an urge that I just want to get this over with.
Yeah, 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 that's good. And so like for I know the MBMEs are like 4 blocks, right?
Right, about 50 questions for blocks, yes.
Yeah. So just like before you take the test, like just
Mhm.
kind of like to build that stamina for, the real exam because it is like, a lot. It's 8 blocks, right? It's a lot. And you gotta and it can take a toll on people. So how do you recommend preparing yourself? Is it doing 2 assessments at a time?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I highly recommend for the last MBMEs or self assessments you take to actually do a 8 hour test day. So you do like one MBME and add like 2 blocks from a Q bank and make it like 7 hours with that 1 hour break time, and eat the snacks you would and take the breaks you would. And so you should kind of have like a mock test day and to make it like a 7 hour test day, so that way on test day it feels like you're doing it's like a routine at that point. So I think the last like three MBMEs, which should be like the last like 3 months or even 2 months, it's a good idea to just have an 8 hour test day.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And also, I think so. The testing centers, they have like mock exams that you can pay for, right?
Absolutely, right. I think you have to, I think once you register for USMLE, you could just sign up for that mock test through USMLE, but I think you still have to get like a permit, right? And then you could go to the Prometric Center and take that exam. And I do really recommend for students who've never been to a Prometric Center to actually go through the process of actually taking the exam. in a prometric center.
That's a great point. I think it's really helpful. I think more people should do it. A lot of people don't do it, but I think the more
100%.
people should do it.
And for Caribbean medical students such as myself, we do have to take comprehensive exams throughout the school year at prometric centers, so we have a good idea. But for students it's going to be their first time, I think it's so important to understand how the process works. Everything takes up time, even if you're taking a break, the biometrics, the fingerprints. And I even remember once at a prometric center, one of the staff started talking a little too much, and I almost went over my break time. So if I only had 5 minutes left by the time I got back to my seat, because she was chatting with me, and it's like time's running. So I could see the screen said something like, break is like over. And I remember it was red, and I was like, oh my God, I have to finish this last block. So you do want to be very careful of understanding the dynamics of a prometric center, where the restroom is. Like, you don't want to waste time during your break time to figure out these little details.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. So okay, let's say okay, right now it's test day. You're in the testing center, right?
Mhm.
Um, like how what kind of foods do you bring? Like, should you have like a heavy meal in breakfast? Like,
Oh,
what should you do?
so I do remember this was like a huge dilemma for myself. I do remember that I didn't have too much coffee that day, where you kind of have to use the bathroom. And to be honest, I thought I was going to take a break after 2 blocks first. That's how I really practiced. But my first block felt so hard that I felt like I needed a break. So I remembered that I took a break after the first block. So I think that you do want to be flexible regardless of how much planning you do, right? And so I remember I took granola bars, I took berries, and for lunch I took a peanut butter jelly sandwich. But the morning, like, I just normal had my normal breakfast, but did have a little bit less coffee, but took um, I think it was some tea bags and things of that nature, that I know that if just in case I have a headache, like I had like my Excedrin and things like that. So I think you should normal have a normal schedule when it comes to eating. It's just that you do want to make sure you're not eating anything too heavy where you have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And I
Or
like the simple lunch. A peanut butter and
yeah,
jelly sandwich. You can never go wrong with that.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so you've done your test, and
But I would like to say, like, I have friends who I remember she told me, like, her dad was so supportive. He got her like a pizza box. Like, he came during her break time, that had
oh,
coordinated, and
yeah,
she had pizza, and I couldn't like process that. But I do think that some people want really simple, but some people want to feel like this adventure. And so everyone's so unique when it comes to these little things. But I think the important part is knowing what you truly want to do for that day you
yeah,
know
and just being prepared. And I like the coffee advice you said, just like not too much, so you don't have to
Right,
go to the bathroom.
right, right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, let's say you've done the test. You're now you're anxiously waiting,
Mhm.
and so for people who passed and who've gotten good score or maybe gotten like less score, but they passed. They've gone through. Right now, there's no scores anymore, so I'm an old head. So when there was scores,
Yeah, right.
so people would kind of like feel bad about the score sometime. But okay, let's say for people who did not pass, they failed. And now they have to do the test again. Like,
Mhm.
have you worked with students who've not done well before? How do you
Absolutely.
like? How do they get themselves back into the game again?
And I really like to say that it's not just IMGs that fail. I've had a lot of American medical students that failed, and they're in, you know, a dilemma where the school is kind of forcing them to take a course because of course the school does not want them to fail that exam, and they want them to graduate with the same class. So I would do want to say that, you know, failure is normal. I just think IMGs really feel the pressure of failing because of the expectations that certain residency programs set, or, you know, about failing and applying. So it's just very discouraging. So if you do fail, I think the most important thing is you have to have the mentality that, hey, if I fail and I want to become a physician, and I'm going to finish what I started by finishing all the USMLEs, failure should not hinder your journey, right? You should feel that you're going to pick up the pieces and you're going to make a better study plan this time around. So one should not feel discouraged.
And I tell students, and basically, if you failed, it's okay. And I've seen a lot of people who failed and got into residency and are great,
Absolutely.
doctors. But just change something, right? Like, don't do the same thing that you've done,
Mhm.
like last time. If you haven't done a course, maybe do a course. If you haven't, maybe like change your study approach. It's just like, it's just very sad to see students who go back, do the same thing, and then fail again.
So
So
again, absolutely. Yeah, it happens a lot more than, we think it happens. No one really likes to discuss this part of the journey, but being a medical advisor, a Kaplan, I really noticed that, a lot of people, when they fail like two, three times, they're very, at that point, they want to share that because they know that it's really going to affect them in the future. So, I really get inspired by their courage because, they don't know what's going to happen next, but they're still motivated to finish what they started. And I think that's really important.
yeah, yeah, I agree with you as well. So would you, for people who failed, what is the top three reasons that you've seen like people not fail? Is it one of them? I know you mentioned that maybe they did an MBME, they got lucky. Maybe they didn't know the knowledge, but they thought they knew the knowledge, right? That was one point that you mentioned.
Mhm. You know, I do think that I've noticed two things. The MBME, if you're getting a similar score the last two, three times you take it before you actually decide to take an exam, that's usually what the score, if you're taking a properly timed paid MBME, that's usually what you're going to get. It's pretty accurate. And so I've noticed some students do book their date. They're not truly ready, but I empathize with them because it has to do with their visa and their stay, and they don't have a choice but to take it at that point. And so it can get like complicated when it comes to that aspect. And so students are not really ready, but they take it. And so in that situation, I think, they do know that where they just need more time to understand concepts or do a little bit more memorizing.
Yeah,
But the
yeah,
second
that's
reason is honestly just a bad test day, which is so unfortunate because I have noticed like students that participate a lot in class, and they're answering questions very proactively, and you know that they know their stuff, but then you find out that they failed, and they're really upset, and you're like, you wonder what happened. And I do think it's just a bad test day.
Would you also recommend like doing like multiple cube banks, not only like U World, but just doing like another cubing as well? Because I found like a lot of like when I was doing my USMLEs back in the day, I did the first aid cube bank that really
Oh
helped
my
me.
God,
And I
me
just like saw some
too.
similar stuff in the exam as well. Yeah,
Too. You mean like the QMax from RX QBank, right?
exactly, exactly. Yes.
Yes. Oh my God. That is the most underrated Q bank when it comes to USMLE resources. I remember I started with UWorld and I did not do that well on my block. And I was like, oh my God, what did I learn in medical school? Because I was so shocked at that score. And then as I was trying to figure out what to do, I came across RxQBank, and it was so wonderful because it helps you go through first aid. And not only that, it has when they put the explanation for the question, it tells you exactly where in first aid it is. So it is one of the best Q banks that I think students should start with to get into the flow of answering questions, memorizing, and learning, and then go on to UWorld. But this does not apply for everyone. Some people have time constraints, some people can only afford to do one. And so, but if you're someone who's really looking into learning first aid, getting into a study flow, first aid's QMAX Step 1 is a wonderful Q bank to start with.
Yeah, yeah, that's great, and it's very underrated. A lot of people don't use it.
Yeah.
I like their flashcards as well. It was just amazing, great tool
Oh, yes,
learning from their flashcards as well. Very
absolutely.
underrated. Yeah, so I would it helped me a lot because I
Yeah,
remember I did it in
too.
yeah, I did it at the end of my prep. Somebody just said, "Hey, just do this," and I was like, I've never heard this. I know they're first aid. I just use the first aid all the
Right.
time. It's weird, doing a Q
Mhm.
bank from first aid. So and then basically I just did it. I just bought it, and I was just like surprised. I just like on test day, I kind
Yeah.
of like similar stuff. I was like, wow, it was really good.
And so I do think another Q bank that I really found that was underrated was MedQuest. MedQuest has a great course actually for step 1 and step 2. For step 1, I did their online mostly, but for step 2, I did an in-person course. And so they have really good Q bank, and it is Dr. Fisher's Q bank, and he
Yeah,
has been a very academic clinician, and so I think he can word questions and explanations in a really effective way for students and clinicians to understand and apply that knowledge on moving forward.
yeah, yeah. And it's also about, I like the word that you said, apply. One thing that really helped me with the questions when I was learning it was changing the strategy of the questions. I've always read the last sentence and then kind of like then started then I read the last sentence, then I looked at the options, and then I
Mm-hmm.
kind of started reading the whole thing, and it kind of helped me go faster, quicker, make better decisions when I changed my
Absolutely.
philosophy as well. So is that the same philosophy that you use and that you advise?
Absolutely. I do think so. For the QMAX, I did use that in the beginning of my USMLE study prep, and I think that was really great because it helped me learn. And when it comes to reading the end of the question first, that was a strategy I used later on in my studying, but I wish I had done it sooner. So once someone advised that to me, I said, "Oh, okay, I guess I can try it." But it was so great because, especially for step 1, I would say. For step 2, it works for some questions, not for some. But for step 1, it's just wonderful because it helps you understand, like, is this a patho question? Is this biochem? And as you learn and build like your foundation, sometimes you think it's going to be a farm question, but it's like immunology question, so it's like it gives you a direction where the question is going to go, so I feel like you could understand what they're trying to ask a lot faster and answer the question more uh, quickly, so I think that's a great test taking strategy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jasmine Arora, for joining us today and explaining
Yeah,
the
thank
USMLE
you.
process. Do you want to just touch base on a little bit about, the year that you've done with the TIMGA USMLE course and some of your experiences?
Absolutely. Well, with TIMGA, I am from New York, and I have in the process of moving to Washington. So I came across TIMGA, and I was very impressed with Dr. Khalif's dedication to the IMG community. And, I reached out to them and asked if I could, get more involved. And so, besides being present for bill signings, I was able to interact with other IMG students and help them uh, learn concepts for USMLE. And, I learned a lot from those students because they were more, they have graduated a long time ago, and so they have a lot more depth. Um, they have a lot more responsibilities and a work schedule. So to be able to help them review questions and concepts, it was a really rewarding experience for me to look back at.
Super. Thank you so much, Dr. Jasmine Arora, for your dedication to helping IMGs at TIMGA and helping people through the USMLE process. And if
Thank you.
people wanna ask you questions or get in touch with you, is there a way that they can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. My email address would probably be the best way to get in touch with me, which would be justneed@timga.org. And so, yeah, feel
Awesome.
free to reach out, and I would be able to connect with you there and help out with anything or any question you may have. And if I can't answer it, I would reach out to my fellow TIMGA team.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Jasmine Aurora. And thank you so much, everybody, for listening to the TIMGA podcast. We
Thank you.
are going to post an episode every week for your help, for helping you get to the next level in your medicine career. And we look forward to for you guys to joining us next week. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you so much for having me. And good